Sup, y'all? Check this out. The weatherman told me there's 6 more weeks of winter. What will I do inside? I want to venture out there on the open plains, but I don't have the reins. Sup, y'all? Today's the 7th of July, 2025. My name's Evan Strong, the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. This is In The Image Clothing Company Podcast, episode 144, titled Firm Ground. Okay, like how my voice is very grounded and resonant. Got a deep voice. Yeah, I just say that for context, I guess. Well, part of that is I just got back from karaoke and I didn't sing. But just one of the activities we do within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You know, we have what we call Family Home Evening on Monday nights as a ward or a congregation of members that go to the same church in the same area on the earth. There's your explanation and description of what a ward is within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I've talked about it before on past episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. But, yeah, we just do things together on Monday nights. Tonight we ended up doing karaoke. And I said that to somebody because it's the case, you know, I just have such a deep voice. There's a lot of music I just can't really sing all that well in the register that they sing it. Like, you know, it's really common for male tenors to make popular music. And I'm definitely not a tenor. I'm not even really a baritone. I'm very much a bass. And, yeah. So I have a deep voice. I don't know what, I guess maybe just giving context. I mean, I'm a musician, right? I mean, the whole fourth of In The Image Clothing Company is In The Image Clothing Company music. And so I'll do it as I do, right? Talk about each of the 4 sides of In The Image Clothing Company. Talk about where clothing sits to allow the human body to work. And then I'll get into the discussion afterward. We'll go here now to In The Image Clothing Company music. I show the sizing and setup of guitars to not alter the body. The human body, okay, allowing the human body to work is what we do under In The Image Clothing Company. And so, yeah, I place music on In The Image Clothing Company music that I've made, and you can just hear, I guess, when I sing, because I sing, I'm definitely, most definitely, a bass. I have a deep voice, a very, very deep voice. I think, I mean, there, you know, I think it shocks people, I guess. There's people out there that have a deeper voice than me, definitely, but you know, a lot of people think of a deep voice, or they'll say somebody has a deep voice and they're like a baritone, and I have like a really deep voice, dude. I tried to like talk almost a little bit higher right there, so I'm not trying to like make a point of it, you know, like I got such a deep voice or whatever. Like, no, I just do. And that's actually partially, seriously, one of the reasons why I make music the way that I do. I make music that's just so like, right? Very weird music is what comes out of me often. when I make music with my body, right? Singing or you know, percussion. I do a lot of beatboxing, you know, where I do, like, a lot of it's off tempo on purpose. And what I mean is, a lot of times I have to approach music in a little bit weird of a way, meaning not so common of a way, unorthodox and untraditional, right? As I say about myself, I am in many ways, most all ways in life. A big part of that's because my voice is so much deeper than a lot of people make music in, right? As far as, like I'm saying, the tenor parts, I can't really get up that high so easily. For me, that's high. You know, even like a low tenor part, even some baritone parts, the upper register of it's like, it's kind of high for me to get to. It just really is. For my natural speaking voice is much lower than, so a lot of times actually men's lowest note they can hit. No kind of comparison. That's the whole thing about it, right? It just is what it is. But there you go. Wow. Anyway, yeah, but we allow the human body to work under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company. We come at it through clothing, the only thing placed onto us physically, the only thing that can physically alter our bodies to that degree. There's nothing else that could alter the body as much as something that's always hanging off of it, tied onto it, drawstring, shoelaces, right? So, we also, though, talk about standing, sitting, walking, eating, breathing, hydration, sleeping, just doing everything that we do naturally, okay? The human being is just a mechanical machine placed onto a rock in space. There's a center line, the sternum, the spine, the trachea, the nose, and our jaw, stabilizing the entire body on Earth's gravity. 2 feet opposing the center line, gripping arches inward, keeping us vertical. So clothing has to stay centered, fit correct, we're all discussing in a minute, and be made from 100% natural materials because the human body is, and materials in themselves can alter the body just as much as sizing. Okay. Stretch within clothing goes the opposite direction of the only way that muscles could ever work. Muscles only contract. Stretch within clothing just didn't even exist a few decades back and then ever before then, okay? So, there you go, okay? In the Image Clothing Company, we will sell clothing that is something that you could purchase, and it will be very beneficial for you to have for the sake of allowing your body to be unaltered by something placed physically onto it. All right, there you go. So another fourth of us is In The Image Clothing Company Poodles. We specialize in purebred standard poodles. We do a lot. Events, we call them poodle parades. Bring your purebred poodles of any size or poodle mixes of any size. Here in the state of Utah, the United States of America is where we are based as In The Image Clothing Company. I will give a lot of information on letting dogs stay natural. We'll just have fun times in nature. Here, Utah is beautiful. The last episode of In The Image Clothing Company podcast, episode 143, is titled Utah. I went over a lot of the beauty of Utah, okay? Clean the Creek Poodle Parade events and other things such as that, where we actually clean up trash, help the environment. Lots of good things, lots of cool things. Breeding purebred poodles, properly registering them under the American Kennel Club. A lot of advocating for dogs, ownership of dogs, and nature that comes through the avenue of having dogs. They're going to benefit a lot with that. Okay, so there you go. 4 sides of us in a little bit of a nutshell, a little bit of a rundown. All right. Man, I love Red the guitar, man. New strings on him a couple days ago on my birthday on Saturday. It was the 5th of July. Yeah, he's so much better. He's so much better to play. I also did an adjustment to the saddle angle at the same time as when I put the strings on, okay? Shout out to my mom. She bought me new strings for Red the guitar for my birthday. I talked about it in episode 143 of In The Image Clothing Company podcast. But, yeah, clothing for everybody has to sit in the same location. If you're a man or woman, tall or short, skinny or fat, any age, any part of the earth, or from any time period. Basically what I mean when I say those things is just any human to ever live. Your body works the same way. There's a neutral to every joint in the body, and it has to just remain, and we have to reside in that. Otherwise, the body just doesn't work, okay? Yeah. So, pants need to be entirely above the hips with the waistband. The waistband of our pants above our hips needs to be slightly higher in the front than the rear, because that's just how our pelvis sits, meaning the hips, the whole structure of that naturally is in an angle where if you place pants onto the body, they have to be higher in the front to not alter how the body would just work without something placed on it. And then we have tops that we wear on top of our shoulders. If there's seams, there should be actually. It's beneficial to have them. It really is. As opposed to just having no seams on your tops, because then your shoulders, yeah, it can be pulled around actually a lot easier from the tops. I was watching Anne of Green Gables. Shout out to that, because I like it a lot. It was great to watch. I think it's my first time that I've seen that. Yeah, the past couple days. And there are items of clothing that these people wear in this show that are from 100 plus years ago, and at least like the design, the movie wasn't actually made that long ago, but it's based in a time period that was before polyester, for example, right? These artificial materials that clothing is made out of, before stretch in clothing, right? Before tags in clothing. And well, you can see that people's bodies work a lot better, but also there's not seams on top of the tops a lot of the time, and that actually is very beneficial. The top seams of our shoulder area need to sit evenly behind the peak of our shoulders, because our shoulders will follow the shoulder seams. That's the point. If there's no seams on top of the shoulders, then your shoulders can move around a lot, but that's not the point, really. The top can move around a lot, and then your shoulders are being pulled around by the top. So it's actually very beneficial to have seams on top of the shoulders, but they need to be even. And so if there is a seam in the collar of our tops, then our collars won't stay centered, and our shoulder seams will not stay evenly across our shoulders. And then our body's damaged, clear down to the tip of our fingers, the tip of our toes, just from the little seam we call the dreaded collar seam under In The Image Clothing Company. So look up In The Image Clothing Company's dreaded collar seam modification if you have any collars that have a seam in them, because we need something to just sit even around our neck. There's just two sides to the body. Musculature on both sides, connecting to the spine. The trachea has to stay in the center without alteration to how that would just naturally be when we're breathing and swallowing, and just supporting our head. Musculature up into the jaw and up into the base of the skull. Yeah. All right. And then the edge seams of our tops just need to be right at the very edges of our shoulders. That's where the joint of the shoulder is. And so it's got to be at the same position as the joint of the materials of the sleeve and the body material of the clothing, okay? Two things we have as prerequisites under In The Image Clothing Company to not alter the human body. We're weaving ropes across the top of the human feet and calling them shoelaces. There's only one way to do that that's shaped the way that the human foot is, and the weave will actually react with the mechanics of gripping an arch inward and rolling the feet in off the outsides of them, with the neutral ankle traveling up to the knee with that outward curvature from the base of our heel up to the knee joint that has rotations actually. And a lot of people don't even know that. I didn't know that at first, before I did all this that I did to get me to here. In The Image Clothing Company changed my life, and so that's what it will do for you, no matter who you are, truly, because we just discussed the human body's anatomy in depth, the only way that it could ever work, because there's only one way the human body could ever work. So In The Image Clothing Company's shoelace technique is how we title weaving a rope the only way that we're not going to alter the feet when we put it across the top of them. And then we tie shoes evenly over toward the center line of the human being on both sides, right? You got to tie this opposing knots on opposing sides of the body to actually make it even. You know, we live in a right-handed world, and I was actually tying a right-handed knot on both feet until I was about 24, and that just rotates your whole body to the tip of your fingers, the tip of your head. The body's actually, a majority about rotations more than anything else, actually. That's how we get down to allowing the body to work, is keeping it in its neutrals, and so that it can have rotations in both directions, both internal and external. From the feet traveling up to the hips, from the hands traveling up to the shoulders, and then through the whole body. So, yeah, secondly, we remove all tags from clothing because they're just causing a physical gap. They didn't exist just, about a few decades back from today's date. It wasn't a legally required thing to just put labeling in clothing, and then they started to make these little tags out of often also synthetic material that's placed against the body, and it's just altering our bodies. Musculature can't activate when that's there. It's just like having something inside your clothing that you're like, going to be getting out of there if it's anything else, but the tags are stitched in, It's weird stuff, dude. It's weird stuff. So there's no such thing as posture. It's just the only way the human body was designed by God to work. It will, unless there's something altering it. We can never train the human being. It just has its only operations as levers, hinges, rotations go. And there you go. Okay. Yeah, that is humbling. Well, also, I'm just sitting here centered, and I played guitar well. I'm just so grateful for these new strings that I was able to put on and the adjustment in the guitar. The guitar itself, I'm grateful that it survived after, me kind of abusing it because I lost my temper and it kind of tried to break it, but like I didn't want it to break at the same time, And that just happens sometimes to little old Evan Strong. So I'm humbled by this. But yeah, this episode is 144 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, and it's titled Firm Ground. I'm going to play a little bit more guitar. I don't know what I'm going to play, but, I like this. I used to play this little jazzy thing. It was like... anyway. Yeah, so... yeah, Little Red here is out of tune to a degree. I'm gonna set him down, but I'm kind of like basking in it, basking in the ease of play. Check out In the Image Clothing Company music. If you play guitar at all, even if you want to learn about singing and stuff, there's not all that much of that placed there yet, but we'll get into that because I do sing and I actually sing well. Yeah, don't believe me. Stick around though if you'd like to see what I talk about. Because I talk about a lot of things, bro. Just allowing the body to work. So, firm ground. This is a big deal. A big point. We'll hit it from a lot of different sides. I'm kind of looking around. If you're watching the video plus audio of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, you see I'm like, what am I gonna do here as far as a visual goes? Yeah, if you're an audio only, there you go. I'm trying to, make sure I do all that I need to within this because I feel grateful. I feel very content with this in such a beautiful way. It's humbling as all get out. Why do they say that though? It's so humbling that you just want to get out. You just want to leave. You can't handle it, Y'all can't handle the truth. The truth is, a lot of people wearing running shoes out there. We're going to get into a lot in this episode. What we do under In the Image Clothing Company podcast, I didn't say this at the beginning, but we have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ, aka the truth of all things, okay? We're all human beings. We all have one God. We all have one earth that we've all been placed onto by that God, who is Jesus Christ, the one and only true, living, ever-present creator of all the things that we could ever know in this life. And we'll get into a lot of that. But firm ground. We need some firm ground. I'm going to start like this. I don't want to set down the guitar. It's like I want to hug Little Red the guitar, but also he's kind of out of tune. But I don't want to tune him necessarily during the podcast episode because, normally tuning an instrument is something you do before you quote-unquote perform, right? That E's got some pretty buzzy fret buzz. But anyway, yeah, so In the Image Clothing Company, the way we allow the human body to work is understanding what natural means. That's what I'll say right now. That's where we'll start this. It's like, this is my first time making a podcast episode. It is not. It's also not my first time having the sprinklers hit the window during one. But we're on 144 episodes. I just want to say it like this. Yeah, we come at the human body, and I don't just, have some ideas on how the body could be benefited, but I really, really, really understand the anatomy of the human body in depth. And I talk about it, I explain it, I know terminology to the degree that I know terminology, right? I really do know the human body. I know its rotations. I know, yeah, a lot about it. So I also know what's required, though, to allow it to work. And so I'm gonna play some guitar. I don't even know what's going on for sure. It feels good, but um my thumbnail keeps getting caught a little bit on these bass strings. My song Horizons, dude. Driving all these horizons. I don't know if I'm the one driving. I'm just kind of here, bro. It's one of those episodes. And that's what I actually said on episode 143, the last one titled Utah. I just felt like settled, I felt like some of those earlier episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast felt. I was in a different room than this one, and I felt more comfortable in a lot of moments in those episodes that I have in ones that I've filmed as of late. And part of that seriously might have been the guitars that I was playing and the ways they were set up. Yeah, no joke. Actually, because that really, really, really affects your body so much, and then that affects your emotions. It affects your ability to articulate words. Wow, it goes into a lot. So firm ground. We build our foundation on the rock of Jesus Christ. It's a parable. Within Scripture, it says, "The wise man built his house upon a rock. The foolish man built his house upon the sand. And then when the waves came and the winds blew and the storms were just beating upon the house that was built on the rock, it withstood all that. But the house built on the sand washed away." Okay? So firm ground, a big part of what we can talk about here is the sprinklers hitting the window. They don't normally come on at this time, but the lawn at this house is actually getting pretty dry. It's Utah summers. It was 94 degrees Fahrenheit when I checked the weather today, because I was wondering, it was warm out there, man. I was out there walking for a few hours. Lately I've been walking multiple hours a day. It's been that way for months, and it's warm, so we got those sprinklers on a little bit, more than we normally would. My mom did that. Here's the thing. Firm ground. A lot of people are building their foundations on some shaky, rocky. When I say rocky, that's not quite the right word, other than it's not solid. Rocky as in it's rocking, right? For these unstable foundations, things that change, things that aren't eternal, things that are conditional, and God is unconditional. So building our foundation on some firm ground is Jesus Christ. This is the whole thing. I've said this and I say it many times under In the Image Clothing Company Podcast's past episodes. Yeah, I say, what is the answer to all these questions that we have? The answer is Jesus Christ. And that doesn't even really make sense to a lot of people who don't know who Jesus Christ is, because that's the all-encapsulating, all-encompassing answer is Jesus Christ. If you have a question about anything, that's the answer to it. And like I'm saying, that's something you have to have a little bit of context to even know how that could be even phrased like that. It's like how we phrase God, Jesus Christ himself, as the great I am, and it just kind of doesn't really make sense. If you don't know what that means or how to understand that, then yeah, it might not really make sense, because it kind of sounds like an unfinished sentence, just like saying, well, how am I going to solve this big complex problem? And you say, your answer is Jesus Christ. It's like, what? Right? If you don't understand who God, Jesus Christ, is, then that doesn't really make sense at all. But that's the whole thing is he is our rock. He's our firm foundation. I think it's beautiful how simple the gospel is. You know, when I preach the gospel, which is what I do here under In the Image Clothing Company podcast, that is the point of this. I preach it in such a simple way, such a simplistic way that everybody can understand. And I relate it to things in our lives that everybody can understand because God is all things. So God is all of our lives. There's that water again hitting the window. Yeah, so, you know, having a firm foundation on Jesus Christ, having a firm ground where we're rooted. You know, a lot of things sometimes they don't seem so firm. You've been given like instructions to do something, and somebody's like, "Yeah, do it like this, and if it doesn't work, try this, and you know, maybe improvise if you need to." But this is basically what you do, and it's like that's not a very firm like instruction. You know, I like blunt and bold and raw and real. That's the way I phrase what we do under In the Image Clothing Company podcast. I say, we have deep dive discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's blunt and bold and raw and real. I get screaming sometimes, you know. I word it like that because, well, that's what I do. And that's what I like, is I like straightforward, straight to the point, no beating around the bush, no passive aggressiveness, right? Just blunt, authentic, real, hit it home. People call it like a straight shooter, right? People who just like just get to the point. They don't mess around with you. They're not leaving you guessing. They're not leaving you, you know, with questions. Yeah. Bluntness, you know, just completely like you put your foot down on something when it is what it is. What I like to put my feet down on is some solid ground, some firm ground. The rock of our earth. The earth is just a rock, dude. The whole crust of our planet actually encapsulates liquid rock in a sense. It's just so hot the rock melts. It's magma, lava is hot. Like not like your stove boiling water kind of hot. It's many times hotter. But the surface of our planet is just rock. It really is. You know, I talk about God's earth and then our man-made world that we place on top of it. Yeah, the rock of our earth is firm. And this is what I mean. The goal for all four sides of In the Image Clothing Company is natural. I say how nature was here before us and it will be here after us, if that's how it would work. You know, if human beings actually just stopped being on the planet, there'd still be all the things that were here before us because human beings were created on the 6th day, and in the 5 days before that, everything else here was created, and then God rested on the 7th day, or the Sabbath day, Sunday. Okay, for us Christians, disciples of Jesus Christ. So this is what I mean. The gospel of Jesus Christ is literal, and that's water hitting the window again. It'll only happen for the amount of time that it does. I think this cycle is probably around 10 minutes. Although, like I said, my mom turned it on for just whatever time she did because it doesn't normally come on right now. But it shouldn't be all that long that noise keeps happening. But I'm kind of glad it does right now, you know, because it's just real. It's just interrupting me as if, you know, I'm not trying to make this any kind of like high production value thing that's not just authentic to me. We're just what we are here under In the Image Clothing Company. And what we are is human beings that are on an earth that is a rock. Okay? A mechanical machine placed onto a rock in space, as I word it. Well, here's the thing. Our feet on nature would be on solid, firm ground. Okay? Because if you're out there in nature and you're walking and all of a sudden you're in like sinking sand or mud or moss, okay, you're going to try to step out of that and get on some solid, firm ground. Okay, some hard, compacted dirt or rock, okay, so that you can have some good, firm standing to your body. The feet grip arches inward, activating muscles. Muscles only contract, okay? And then we can stand up. And if you're in nature, the only thing that's going to be soft and squishy like that is stuff that you're probably not going to be standing on if you can have any say of not standing on it. Now here's the thing, we have this man-made world placed onto God's natural earth. We have beds, couches, chairs, carpet, floor mats. What else you want to talk about that we have often? Shoe soles, squishy, foamy material, stuff that's just unnatural. It's man-made. These things are things that we would never be on as human beings. In nature, if you're going to sit down, you'll sit on the ground. You might sit on a low rock, a low stump. And that's basically it. In our modern man-made world, we're sitting on beds, couches, chairs with cushions. And it's not natural for the body because muscles only contract and they need to be able to on something firm. And you can't contract your muscles when you're on something so squishy. Your muscles just deactivate. And that's just how it is, Muscles are, the body's very rigid, really. Even though, when our bodies are working naturally, they're very loose and flowy, and there's a lot of natural rotation, especially internal, right? Like me now, closer to the human body's center line, internal rotation. I paused. For those of you in audio only, I showed what it looks like external versus internal, right? Look at my forearms rotation, external versus internal. Look at my shoulders rotation, external versus internal, right? To the body's center line, where all the strength relies. Well, I guess the word would just be lies. The strength lies within the body's center line. Yeah, and so you sit on something squishy, you stand on something squishy, and your body just kind of like, it melts away, basically. That's how it feels. It deactivates your muscles, and you feel like you're falling. You feel like you're detached from reality, I got a grasp on reality. It's something that could never leave. Shoot, I think, hold on. Might have been on the 4th fret. I did a freestyle one time and it was like, got a grasp on reality. Well, it was knots in my hair. Knots in my hair. I got a shoot, yeah, I don't know what key it was in or where the capo was, but I got a grasp on reality. I don't know. I got a grasp on reality. It's something that could never leave. Got a grasp on reality. Something that could never leave. Something that could never leave. I don't know. I kind of want to see if I can play that because I think it was on the 2nd, dude, that's where I was just then. I got a grasp on reality. Something that could never leave. So knots in my hair. Shoot, I don't know. I don't even know for sure what chords it was, but I used to talk about that, having a grasp on reality. I think there's actually an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled something like that. Yeah, there is. I just don't know what the title is for sure. It's very similar to that. It could be that, a grasp on reality. But if you don't have internal rotation in your body, because really what internal rotation is, and be careful with that, I'm not trying to make it a blanket statement, because actually one of the first, big impact-wise videos I made under the main site of In the Image Clothing Company in the fall of 2024 was titled, There is a Lot to Internal Rotation, and I referenced it in many videos that I made after that, because there is a lot to internal rotation, really. The way the human body works, it's not complicated, but when we come from these patternings that get caused by clothing, drawstrings, shoelaces, ropes is what those are, and then clothing placed onto us imbalanced, pulling our bodies in different directions and affecting our rotations left to right and internal versus external. through the whole body. Yeah, shoot. We sometimes don't understand the way that the body naturally works, and we sometimes are so far off from understanding it. So, darn it, that's crazy. I got a grasp on reality. It's something that could never leave. So knots in my hair, get out of the way. Well, this is the big thing: is a grasp on reality is nature. A grasp on reality is our earth. A grasp on reality is God, the beginning, the middle, and the end. Yesterday, today, and forever. The almighty, eternal, one and only true God. And nature's firm. And our bodies are designed by God to work on the earth, which is firm. And then we design a lot of things to try to bring comfort to our lives. And it actually very, very much damages. In this case, if we're just saying this alone, which it travels into other things as well, but our physical function as a human being. So, yeah, I mean, you picture standing on moss, sand, mud, okay? It just takes a lot more energy to do. Your feet get tired and it travels up through your whole body. It's like standing on a trampoline, like standing on a bed, like standing on a really squishy mat. The body actually really gets fatigued because it's using so much excess stabilizing muscles because the thing is unpredictable. It's not firm. It's like a sandy foundation. It's unpredictable. It's not like building your foundation on the rock of Jesus Christ that we know, because God is always the same. He's predictable. Now, his ways are not our ways. They're higher, they're holier. Nobody can understand all of who and what God is in this life. But we're given the ability to understand, some hidden mysteries of the kingdom of God. The closer that we get to God, the more he'll draw near to us, right? But we have to draw near to him first. And how we do that is understanding that the earth is naturally so firm. How firm a foundation, do. There's a hymn in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that is titled How Firm a Foundation. I don't know who wrote it. I'd give credit to them if I knew. But it's written for God, so I'll be okay not giving credit for that. That's awesome. Yeah, firm ground. We need to be able to have firmness. And so this, physically, literally, shoe soles, firm, flat on the earth, okay? Accommodating for the space of how our feet are naturally shaped. Ropes in the body, there was no stretchy ropes until very recently, just decades ago. So firm, no give ropes. I have these leather strips as shoelaces in these shoes. I bought these shoes, $6 used at the Deseret Industries thrift store a couple weeks ago, and they came with these like square-ish cut, just like white cream colored leather laces. There's no give, right? And I use round laces where I can. It's ideal, natural things are round, tree trunks and such. And just no give to the drawstrings, to our clothing. There's an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled No Give, actually. There is. So we need things to be firm, okay? And we live in a modern world where there's so much created out of our own human hands that are quite firm, naturally. And the things that we create with them are not firm. And a lot of people's foundations are not firm. A lot of people don't feel like they have solid ground to stand on or to walk on or to rely on, because they'll build a foundation on something that's soft and fragile and shaky, and then it doesn't last. As I say, we should not trust human beings. And I want that to be heard correct because, you can trust the people you love and who love you to the degree that you can, but no human being can ever actually hold up their end of the deal. I've talked about this, some of the earlier episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, I went into this, quite more often than I have lately. You know, I can only be as trustworthy as I can hold up to my end of the word that I say, and I'm not perfect. I tell you I'm going to be there tomorrow, and then I get in a car wreck tonight, and I'm dead. You can't trust me because I can't hold up my end of the bargain all the time, no matter how good of a human being I am. And so that's why we have the firm foundation of Jesus Christ, our perfect God, who literally does not make mistakes. Okay? We need some firm ground to walk on. We need firmness in all that we do. There is a lot that we have nowadays man-made that we're holding in our hands, that we're using, that we're resting our bodies onto. I talk about how rest weakens the body because the human body really can only ever work activated as a whole. It's all there. Anywhere any of the body goes, all of it comes, as I say, right? And so you can't actually rest your body without damaging your body. But then especially now you're already doing something that's not something the body does by just resting part of it, And then you're doing it on like a soft bed or a soft recliner chair or a soft cushiony couch. We need firm ground. People are so lost from what reality is. And this isn't me being all mean, like sometimes people say, like, wake up to reality, it's like they're yelling in your face and trying to like crush your dreams. Well, yeah, we don't need to dream about anything either, right? I mean, it's so funny because I can really just get into whatever I get into in these episodes. It's so cool. I love In the Image Clothing Company podcast. But I don't mean it like that, like wake up to reality, but I mean it. If you don't have your body working on firm ground, you'll feel so detached from reality. They call it disassociation. They want to label it as like a mental illness. But no, I mean, if your body's just not activated, then part of it's just going to be shut down. And you'll be kind of spaced out just because your body's only half working physically, muscle activation wise. Your body's out of its only neutral positions, blood flow's cut off, right? This is true. This is really what's going on. The answers are so simple. That's what I started to say earlier. Is I preach the gospel in such a simple way because the gospel of Jesus Christ literally means the good news of God. The one and only God that created all of this and us. Anything we could ever understand or comprehend in this life, it was created by Jesus Christ. And, this disassociation and this lost touch that we often get into if we're not careful and diligent and intentional, a lot of it does come from not being on firm ground. I mean, just the nervous system of our body, the electrical system that sends signals to the brain to tell us how to operate through our environment, and just, all the things that it does tell our bodies. It's really what runs the computer of our physical being, the human being, which is our brain. That's the nervous system. Little electrical firings happening. I mean, this is really just how it is. This is truth. In a world of, people trying to use medication and therapy and mantras and beliefs to try to just get something to work the only way that it ever could, those things aren't the approach. You just couldn't ever actually fix it. There's only one way that things are what they are. The truth is truth. And people are not physically on firm ground. People will spend so much time laying in bed, on their technological devices a lot of times nowadays at this time period. That's a lot of what happens, and their hands aren't firmly physically touching anything, firm ground. We need to actually use our musculature or the body just kind of withers away. It really just does. Yeah, that's what that episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Designed to Work talks about a lot, is not only is it designed to just do what it should, but it's designed to physically work. The body has to be working. It has to be activated. Muscles have to contract because that's the only thing they do. The other end is just going limp. Every muscle only shortens. Even though we feel like we're pushing, it's just muscles on like the back of the arm. If you're pushing your arm forward, it's just your triceps behind your arm contracting, and your pectorals here on your chest contracting, and your shoulder musculature, your deltoids contracting. It's just muscles closing even though you feel like you're pushing. And that's a lot of what I meant in that video titled "There is a Lot to Internal Rotation." It's because there's no such thing as pushing. It's muscles shortening that cause a lever to extend. There's no such thing as pushing. That's, again, well, also, yeah, there's the Truth Behind series under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company. And I talked about the truth behind push versus pull. And the human body is designed to pull because muscles only contract anyway. Even the muscles that you're doing a pushing motion in, they're pulling. Two endpoints together at the musculature's insertion to allow a lever to extend, like the elbow, for example. That's just the only way the body works. That's just how it is. Okay, again, truth is truth. It's just what it is. It's just what it is, and that's humbling. Yeah, so firm ground, we need something solid physically. We need to be on a solid life. A lot of people spend so much time, like I'm saying, just on recliner chairs, couches. We just never had technology in the past. I don't talk about it so often. I'm not afraid of talking about it, but I mean, it just changes so much. It's not going to be at all like what it is today in such a short amount of time, because that's how it was just a while ago and just a while before that, right? It just changes, and God doesn't change. God's earth is firm. Our feet need to be on firm ground. Our foundation needs to be firmly planted on the one and only truth. Like all these things that I've said within here. I mean, I've already said so many things in this episode alone of In The Image Clothing Company Podcast, episode 144, titled Firm Ground, that I've ended it with just like, well, truth is truth, because we get so lost so easily, right? In the Book of Mormon, it says, a lot of people, they became quick to do iniquity, but slow to remember the Lord their God. Yeah, we're quick to sin. We're quick to do things wrong. And sometimes we're very slow to remember that truth is truth. And we're just in delusions when we want to make something that it isn't. Because things are just what they are. And so, you'll have a lot of things happening nowadays that are just so unnatural. And I could get into anything that I could, but yeah, just firm ground, having some firm ground. Man, it's hard, It's hard to live in a world where there are so many people that are just so lost. And I'm not talking down on people, because this is what I mean. It's hard to live in this world. I was so lost. There's been so many times that I've been sitting on the edge of a bed, and just that alone, just the squish of this bed, I don't know how I'm going to really have you be able to tell how squishy this is. It's not really going to do me any good to reach clear over here out of the frame of the camera and push on it for you to tell. But, people, they'll get told by like a podiatrist, which is a foot doctor, that they should try to use shoes that are nice and squishy on the bottom, or have a big marshmallowy sole, or put insoles in your shoes that are nice and soft. That might help your body. No, that's only going to damage your body. We've talked about these things since the founding of In The Image Clothing Company. Shoe soles, insoles, firm ground, flat earth. The earth is a globe. But when we're walking on the earth, our feet are flat on the ground. And we can grip the earth, the dirt. I mean, there's only dirt or rock. Until there's concrete or tile or carpet or asphalt or brick laid on the ground, whatever it is, those are all man-made things. There's only earth. It's just rock and dirt. You can use the word clay. Again, truth is truth. Human beings as it says in Scripture, we're pulled from the clay and we'll just return to it. Whether you get cremated and your ashes blow out into wherever and just fizzle into the earth again, or you just get buried in something like a coffin underground, your body will eventually just decompose back into the earth. And it's firm. Bones are firm. Musculature, when it activates, it's firm. Activation of muscles is the fibers all just like, activating, just getting firmer than if they were to be all limp and, what we think of as relaxed. That's why it's not true. You can't rest your body. It actually damages you. You have to always keep your musculature activated. This is just the truth. I know that it seems so backward of what a lot of people preach, but right, that's why I say don't believe me. You don't need to, but understand what we're saying here, not what you're hearing here, and try these things, and it's just the truth. Yeah, shoe soles are such a big thing, man. And so then, we talk about running, and it's so damaging to the body. Again, things that are so contradictory to what other people say, but it is the truth. Running didn't even happen until like the 1970s for like sport. I mean, it was weird for people when people first started running, like about 5 decades back. They're like, where are you going? Why are you running? Where are you going to get to? And they're like, I'm just running. Why? Like, it didn't happen in the past. It didn't need to, because there wasn't unnatural things like all this squish, all this unfirm ground in our modern life. It didn't exist in the past because the materials didn't even exist. This is truth. I mean, this is really the truth. This is actually what it is. This is actually how I can say clothing is the only fix to human beings' physical problems. Because if you're always within stretchy clothing, it's not firm. And so you have no idea where to start with getting your body to work if it's pretty much always encapsulated in something that's stretching anyway, which is the opposite direction of the only way that your muscles could ever work. We need some firm ground, So, yeah, we need some firm ground. And all that we do, things need to be firm. That's why I say, no give in shoelaces. And, we talked about a lot of that in that episode titled No Give in the Image Clothing Company podcast. But if anything is going to change in life, it's probably not true. And that has to be seen with some context. And that's not exactly always the case. There's exceptions in ways, but truth doesn't change. And, you hear the words like shady or, man, I don't know what word exactly, but what I'm thinking about is like, you think about somebody who's, shifty, right? Like shifting sands. Somebody who's telling you something and it's just, that doesn't seem like a solid statement, right? That doesn't seem like a firm explanation. It seems like you're a little bit shifty on what you think you're talking about or what you're trying to tell me, right? Firmness, firm ground. Well, think about a law firm. Again, I love words. I'm a lyricist. And normally I start to beatbox after I say that because I am, right? I'd be like, I'm a lyricist. Yeah, I'm a lyricist. I love lyrics and I love words because words are literal. The gospel of Jesus Christ, the written word of our living God. Read the word of God is an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. It's literal. I know the parables and stuff, they seem a little bit hard to understand at first sometimes for some people. They're literal. They actually are literal, brother. A law firm. Okay? It's firm because within a court of law, at least here in the United States of America, you're innocent until you're proven guilty, right? The only way you can prove something is if something is true. All you're doing in the court of law when you have like a dispute on something is getting down to the truth, which is firm. The cold, hard truth, right? The hard facts, right? Firm ground. That's what I mean. These things are literal. This is why I say it. This is how I say it. This is how it is what it is. This is why God is God. This is why he's the great I am. This is how the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints really is the restored church on the earth. All that to say, the gospel of Jesus Christ is the truth of all things. It's just things laid out literal in a world of opinions, bro. A law firm, right? There's a law. And, like I said earlier about putting your foot down, yeah, firmness, right? Rock solid. Yeah. Hard ground. Hard, firm truth. So the point being, within a law firm, yeah, I mean, you get down to the truth of what really happened, Man, I'm humbled by this. I just love words so much because there you go. I mean, you want to know if somebody's being straight with you, I mean, if someone's telling you the truth, do they seem shady and shaky and shifty? Well, even the word shaky, right? People literally shake and tremble when they're lying, right? Somebody's lying to you and you like have them hold out their hand and they're like shaking, or somebody is in like the court of law and they're trying to lie to get out of something and they start to shake, They have those lie detector things they put on your body. They measure your heart rate, they measure your musculature's activation, right? And your eyes movements and your breathing patterns because yeah, you start to get shaky when you're lying, right? If you shake sand, it just kind of moves. If you shake a rock, it's just a rock, right? It's hard, it's firm, it's solid. So, yeah, firm ground. Welcome to the law firm. I love that. Yeah, that's crazy. It's literal. It's literally the truth of all things, as I've said before, the gospel of Jesus Christ. Bro, I mean, what else are you going to say about it, I'm kind of asking myself. I'm kind of wondering. I'm trying to pray through it. Like, I feel this whole feeling about just, like, contentment. I don't know if it's content with just, yeah, don't feel like it's got to be any faster than it does, this episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, or if it's, like, contentment with where I am and let's cut it, I don't think that's what it is. So I'm just trying to really pray through it because this is a big one. We live in such a shaky, shifty world. That's really what it is. People who are like con men, people try to get money out of other people by lying. That's the word that I've heard used a lot is shifty, But again, it's just things that shift, things that change, right? If you're changing gears in a car, you're shifting gears, going from one thing to another, and the truth doesn't change. God is the same, always. I just want to express my gratitude for how I'm able to do this, how I'm able to lay words out the way that I do. I mean, I feel like I've talked about Eminem quite a bit, just kind of referencing some lyrics from his songs, but the rapper, you don't have to like rap and you don't have to think rap's this or that, but Marshall Mathers, I remember hearing, he used to study the dictionary. I mean, he's a lyricist. He works words together and rhymes words that other people wouldn't think to rhyme, but he just has, at least at times, he studied the dictionary. And I'm just thinking about myself. I've never like sat there and studied words really. That's why it's so humbling to me is I've really been given this gift by God to just speak so well, to understand delivering information so well. It's nuts. I mean, I couldn't take credit for it because, like I'm saying, I don't really know how it happens. I really don't. I've had a lot of practice. I mean, I did just, spend so many hours and hours and hours driving as a teenager, playing just instrumental beats and freestyling lyrics over them, like freestyle rap. But still, like, I don't know for sure how I know as much as I do about words, but I love it so much. And so, yeah, man, firm ground, We can talk about like this though for sure, a little bit at least, because on In the Image Clothing Company Poodles, one of the things that I say, as I'm like talking about what we do, all of a sudden I'm from New York. When I'm talking about what we do on In the Image Clothing Company Poodles, I'm like, we let dogs stay natural. We talk about unnaturally slippery flat flooring. I say this, because yeah, the joints of the dog up into the shoulders and the hips of the dog can be really damaged by, you see sometimes, dogs slipping around on hardwood flooring or, tile or just really smooth, flat flooring that doesn't have grip to it, right? It's not firm ground. I mean, the ground can be physically pretty firm, but it's not like a firm step that the dogs are taking because they're slipping. It's like being on an ice skating rink as a human being because they've got claws. They don't have just like the bottoms of the feet that human beings do. Quite the same, right? So, I mean, they have pads to their feet, but it is different. They use their claws in a different way than we use our toenails. Even though toenails and fingernails are so important, okay, all the way to the tips of your fingers and toes to fully support them. That's why they're there. Your shoulders will be damaged in your whole body, and your hips will be damaged in your whole body if your fingernails or toenails are cut shorter than the ends of your fingers or toes. That's why they're there. Yeah, ideally relatively flat on the tips, and then you can round the corners so they're not sharp. But you don't want your fingers rolling all over the place. Otherwise, you've just lost your natural grip strength given to you by God. So, yeah, and your neutral wrist will just leave you. Yeah. Shoot. Some firm ground. I mean, that's a big point. And I actually thought about that earlier when I was like, yeah, we could make an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Firm Ground. If you don't have a firm grip because the tips of your fingers or the tips of your toes are just rolling over the end of your nails that you've cut too short, then you don't have any firm grip, right? Again, you will not have a grasp on reality at that point. Physically, you will not. And it travels into your psyche, which is your mental state and your emotions and everything as well. And then spiritually, you'll just feel out of it. Just how it works, dude. Truth is truth. That's why the nails are there, is to give us a firm grasp. So yeah, firm ground. Yeah. Firm ground. Even the things that we're doing, sports that we play. If you play a sport with like a flat ball, it's hard. And your musculature just has to be overworked. And it's not working the only way that it actually normally would. Normal, neutral, natural synonyms within the human being, right? So, when you're playing like soccer, which is, football across the other parts of the earth, but some other parts of the earth at least, yeah, I mean, just pump the ball up hard, like firm, right? Not like a rock necessarily, but firm, anything like that. Otherwise, yeah, you're just using excess musculature to try to stabilize something that's not stable. Yeah, we talk about sleeping under the episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Sleeping Truths. Yeah, we need to sleep on something quite firm. Otherwise, the whole night that you're laying there trying to sleep, your musculature is trying to stabilize on something unstable, unfirm, that's shifty, that's soft, right? Yeah, so same with stretch, right? No stretch in anything that we ever do. There is just about, okay, nothing stretchy in nature. There's just about nothing. And anything that there is, it's not like we're going to be commonly interacting with it. It's just not something that we would be interacting with basically at all as human beings, ever, unless we designed man-made artificial things that had give to them and stretch to them, softness to them that's unnatural, right? Firm ground. We need firm ground, man. Yeah. Firm ground. Yeah, anyway. I think he's out of tune, but I'd play some more music if I knew what to play right now. Yeah, dude. I talk about, though, guitar strings, ideally relatively low tension. I use, when it comes to nylon strings, which is what I play, crazy things with nylon strings is what Evan Strong does. That's me, by the way. I'm rhyming even when I didn't try to. That's funny. Seriously. But I talk about relatively low tension. I use regular tension, nylon strings. But you just don't want things so soft and so, oh, we just need our bodies to work, dude. We just need things to be as natural as we can. Think about a tree, think about a rock, think about a stick, think about, just the dirt. I mean, it's just firm. We live in this soft man-made world, and no joke, this travels into being a soft human being. And I don't want to be offensive on my end. If you get offended, that's on your end. But things that I'm saying, I don't want the intention to be mean coming out of me. Ever, really. That's not how it's going to work. We turn the other cheek and kill them with kindness. That's what we're commanded to do by God. I mean, it doesn't literally say kill them with kindness, like word for word in Scripture, as far as I know. But that's what that means, that phrase. That's what that means, That's what that means. But shoot, see, that hits me. I have said it a few times because that's big. But we do live in a society where people are very soft. And I'm a very feminine man. In a lot of ways, I really am. And I'm really emotional and sensitive. But there's a difference between being like soft and being in touch with your emotions. We need to be able to be very firm, like I'm saying, stern, direct, and we need to be okay with offending people and having things just be offensive without taking offense by them or from them. We need to be firm, like when you say something, like if you've ever heard people say, when you say something, say it with your chest, like put some emphasis in it, that's something that's actually beneficial for us as the people saying the thing. If you say something and you're like not so sure on it, like maybe we could try to do this if you want, right? That's what I mean about like being soft rather than being firm. Like, hey, do it this way. How about we try this? Well, the first one, I don't, don't tell people how to do stuff, but like that second one was better. Like, I've got an idea for this. Let's try this. Like be very direct, firm, and stern. Otherwise, it's like, we could maybe, if you got, how about if, and then nobody listens to you. That's what I mean about it. It's for yourself. It's a liberating thing to you. When you speak something, say it firm, say it direct, and kind of harsh. Actually, that's what it says in Scripture. The truth is harsh, and sometimes people take it very harshly. Really, what it says is the wicked take the truth to be harsh. But that's the thing is manipulation is often a very soft, like, right, like persuasive type of evil. Okay, the truth is harsh and hard, straight to the point, firm, and the rock of God. That's what I mean. So, those people who are like all soft and sensitive with you in a way that's not natural, in a way that like passive aggressiveness. That's what I was saying, toward the beginning of this. People say stuff in a way that they're not being directly mean. They say it kind of backward and in a way that doesn't sound like they're being mean, but it's like this like backhanded slap in the face, like, oh, you're just so really good at that, aren't you? Or something, right? I mean, that's like being all passively like behind the scenes. You got some hidden motive, but like you're saying words that sound like something else. This is like a soft, weird, gross approach, right? Or beating around the bush, when you don't say something as it is, but you kind of be like, it might be better maybe if we, do it this other way, possibly, but like you're going to like make it happen. Those kind of things, like you're being soft in a way that's actually like manipulative. That's what it leads to, right? Is what I mean. Rather than being so firm and direct, if it doesn't happen how you say or how you approach it, well, whatever. At least you said it and you stuck to it. Again, those phrases like stick to it, right? Stick to your word, stick to your wits. You're a man of your word, right? Or a woman of your word, just meaning human beings, right? Mankind, men or women. There's only two genders, by the way. It's like that, right? You got to say it firm. A lot of people out here beating around the bush, right? And they're intending on like chopping into a beautifully trimmed piece of shrubbery. Yeah, don't beat around the bush, I mean, because things just are what they are. And that's what gets people so lost in life, is there's not firmness a lot of the time in modern day. A lot of people are just so softly beating around things. They're so softly like sneaking their way in, firm ground. Yeah, if you speak something, I think this will probably, no promises, probably be something I touch on quite a lot more in the future. Notice I say probably, but then I say quite a lot as well. Because, yeah, it could be spoken on quite a lot and just, maybe often as just kind of like a thing that we say to really help people. When you say something, don't let your words fall off at the end. It's like when you sing, right? When you hold the note until you stop it at the end. Sometimes singers, they have a like a habit they need to, they're trying to get out of, where they'll sing a note, but they're like, and the end of it will like fall off. Like you picture a car going off a cliff, and that sound like it just like falls off, rather than like you're holding a note and then it's done, right? Like like that firm end. Anyway, I'm not trying to like sing right now. What I'm saying though is when you speak, make it clear and direct. I'm saying this and this is what I'm saying, rather than like I'm saying this and this is what I'm saying, right? Don't fall off at the end like that. Just be clear about it. You can be as wrong as you can be, because we're wrong as human beings. But do it like I just did. Like, hey, I'm wrong, right? Rather than like, I guess I was wrong. No, stand on it. Have a firmness to how wrong you were. Like, yeah, I was wrong about that. Be firm about it. Because if you were, right? Own it. That's kind of what that means as well. Firm ground is kind of like owning up to what you're doing. We talk about taking accountability so often under In The Image Clothing Company. Just a big thing we have to do as human beings, again, for ourselves. It really is us that is damaging the most when we're not taking accountability for things. It can really, really damage other people as well, but it's us that it hurts the worst, because God already knows all before it ever even happens. So we have to take accountability, and that's a firm thing to do. It's like, yep, I did that, right? Rather than like kind of like passively, half-heartedly taking accountability for it in a soft kind of way that's not firm. That's what I mean, right? This is a beautiful episode for the sake of the information in this, because people are like, yeah, I mean, I did that, yeah, I guess, it's like, don't do that. Be like, yeah, I made a big mistake. I did, right? Be firm about it. That's what I mean. You'll never get taken seriously if you don't take yourself seriously. That's really what I'm saying with this. When it comes to being firm, again, like in a law firm, the people who are telling the truth in there, they stand firmly on it, right? Like I said, stand in holy places and be not moved. Stand in a firm location of just truth, of the rock of God. Truth. It's firm. It doesn't move. It doesn't change. Truth is the same whether it's ever been spoken or not, right? The unspoken truths. People phrase stuff like that often. Sometimes, you're hiding something from somebody for a long time, but it's just the truth. When you say it, it's like this, like, poof, like hits you like a ton of bricks. You ever heard that? Again, I love words. Things are literal. When something hits you hard, it's like, man, that hit. It's because it was a firm thing, because it was the truth, right? When you relate to something, that means that there's this deep-rooted thing within you, firmly planted, if you will, like a tree. It's not going to be firm in the winds if it's not deep-rooted, right? So something hits you deeply, and it's firm, right? A firm hit. Firm ground. That's what I mean. Truth is truth. Meaning, words just mean what words mean as well, right? It's the truth of all things. God, the gospel of Jesus Christ, our living God himself. Yeah. It's so cool, dude. That's what I mean by just all that I mean is what I mean when I said it. Shoot. So condemn me for what I have said, right? Because I've said it. So you can have a problem with it all you want, but I can't change it, and neither can you. Firmness, because I can say that so firm, and people are like, how do you say that? What if you said something one time you wish you didn't? Well, I can wish all I want, but it's there, and I have to just know that it's firmly planted in history, if you will. Every word you've ever said, it's been said, right? I mean, what if somebody filmed it or audio recorded it, and you just want to try so hard to not let it seem like you said what you did because maybe you're not so proud of it, or maybe you wish you didn't? It doesn't matter. It's still there. It's firmly documented, if you will, right? Firmness, firm ground. Let's get some firm ground, dude. Anyway, I'm like ready to jump off this floor, man. Like, I don't even know. You see me like moving around. It's out of comfortability that I'm moving around. Seriously. It's like, I don't know. It feels good, because I used to say this in some of those episodes. I was saying this feels like, right? Some of those earlier episodes is how we'll word it, of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. Some of them I would say, I feel like running. Like I just get like energized when I'm saying things sometimes, when it's good stuff to document. Under In the Image Clothing Company podcast, and so yeah, dude. I mean, some firmness, yeah. Sure-footed. When people just like, I mean, they're balanced and they're standing well, physically, or they know where they're going in life. You call it sure-footed, if we're pronouncing it like that. Just meaning you know where to place your feet on firm, solid ground. You've got a path and you're walking it, right? Words are awesome, dude. Words are words, bro. Things are what they are. Truth is truth. I didn't design it. I can't decide it. I mean, I never get to decide what anything is, dude. Things are just what they are. It's not about me, like, coming up with something. I just love the amount of understanding that I have of God. I mean, that's all there is God. That's all there is truth. And it's firm. Yeah, so, anyway, maybe that's where we wrap it up. I just love this. I love it so much. Firmness, man. So yeah, we'll do a lot under In the Image Clothing Company's products. I think about stuff like dog leashes, and they've got those retractable leashes, and that seems like a good thing in ways. Or like any kind of bungee type, stretchy type, flexy type thing in dog leashes. Or like safety collars for dogs that have like stretch, flex, give, bungee in them. That's damaging to the dog and the trachea, which is, where we breathe here, the tube in our neck. We have them as well. Dogs and human beings, we're just bodies of flesh and bone on earth, okay? Dogs have the same thing. Spine, sternum, trachea, nose, jaw, center line, okay? I mean, yeah, as human beings is what I'm saying, right? So firmness, to products, to the things that we do, man. I mean, we could just get into everything that we could ever talk about as human beings physically and having physical firmness in just what we're doing in life. And so that's one of the biggest things, though, really is shoe soles and no squishy insoles, even if you've got pretty solid shoe soles, Yeah, we need to be on the ground. Because even those things, people call them flip-flops, people call them thongs, uh, whatever else they get called, but just those like simple sandals in a sense, but you just pinched them between your toes. Well, yeah, they're just damaging to the body in many ways, but they seem flat and thin because they are, usually those things, but they're pretty squishy and they're not firm for your feet to walk on, actually. Some of them are, but a lot of them, they're like foamy squish. So yeah, firm ground. We need to be firmly on the ground. You think about islanders, man. A lot of like Polynesian people from Hawaii, people from parts of the earth where they just don't really wear shoes often, and a lot of those people are very, very grounded people because they're firmly on the ground. Firm ground. Episode 144 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, right? If it cuts for the sake of storage space, that's the reason it cut. I'm not cutting it off, right? Out of my doings. I don't do that. Unless I'm, intentionally outroing it is what I mean, and you can tell that I cut it. But, I mean, shoelaces, drawstrings, sometimes they just seem, fairly firm, but they've got that little bit of stretchiness. And when you're talking about feet activating, supporting your whole body, your feet are the lowest point, on Earth's gravity. When you're talking about your core, which is the core, like I say, like the core of an apple, everything stems from the core, right? The stem feeds the core of the apple, and then everything grows from there out. The human being, everything in it stems from the center of it, the core, like the hips, the pelvis, the abdominal area with all the musculature of the spine coming down and the legs coming up. And so a drawstring, a belt, a waistband, any kind of stretch that's not firm, the whole body will be damaged from its center, going out to the extremities, the tip of the head, tips of the fingers, tips of the toes. So solid belts, drawstrings, slipped lap knots, looped toward the center line of the human being, or just, nice, fairly thin, centered, even belts if you're going to use a belt, right? But just keep the pants higher in the front, and often when you get a belt buckle on the front, it's more weight than on the rear, and so the pelvis could go forward, or drop in the front, anteriorly rotate, right? All the same thing, just worded differently so you can understand what I'm saying. Anyway, firm ground, man. Because that's the thing, you see people like that, those islanders. They don't have to be people from islands necessarily, but often people from islands, they're in the ocean a lot, right? So you're gonna either take your shoes off to get in the water, or you just already have them off. But people, in rainforests often don't really wear shoes. People in deserts sometimes don't either, like sandy places. You just get sand in your shoes anyway if you wear shoes. Anyway, you notice it. People from certain parts of the earth that, geographically, like the actual environment. And yeah, those things though, sand, watery, rainy, oceany, those type of places, often they don't wear shoes and they're on the earth. And you see it in the countenance of them. They're grounded people, like emotionally, spiritually. They're like they seem like they're really pretty solid people, right? Again, these words, it's literal. That's what it means to be grounded, is somebody who's firmly on the ground, right? Grounded in truth, grounded in righteousness, right? Firmness, a firm foundation, right? Literal. So anyway, yeah, firm ground. We need to be on it in all the ways that I've discussed in this, okay, and all the ways that we could talk about it. Yeah, firmness. I mean, I'm looking at my forearm here. For those of you in visual plus audio of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, episode 144, titled Firm Ground, you can see what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. That's what it sounded like. I say that sometimes. Pretty often, actually. I've said it lately during the Image Clothing Company content. But, I can notice all the mobility of the musculature in my arm. I'm not saying like, oh, I'm so strong, I have so much muscle. Okay, just for context, that's not what I'm saying. But I am saying the muscle should move freely, regardless of if you're pretty thin or if you've got like a lot of excess, is really what it is, right? Excess muscle mass from like working out. Yeah, my forearm, because we talk about the outside of the right forearm, especially one of the biggest parts of the entire human body that builds up the most scar tissue in these chronic patternings from clothing. There's so much rotation actually in the forearm, as you can see here, and all those muscles, all that musculature that travels from the tips of the fingers up to the elbow, it needs to be able to move freely. And how that's going to happen is by using our hands on firm things, just meaning natural things. But again, in modern day, there's things that are so unnatural product-wise, the materials, and they're soft and squishy or excessively slippery, right? Like glass, we're touching often for reasons that we are technology. Yeah, you like the way I talk about stuff like that? It's funny. I love it. I love it. I'm not beating around it. It's just you don't need to say more than you need to about stuff that's just going to change, right? But it's our cell phones, right, is what I mean. They're used so often at this time period, and they're not firm. We're swiping around on a piece of glass. Anyway, so the musculature of your body, the way it's going to actually work is if it's touching earth. That's how I'm gonna say it. We'd always be only touching earth unless we made our unnaturally artificial society and placed on top of God's planet. That's just how it's always going to be. Okay, so anyway, firmness, firm ground. Yeah, a big thing with guitars, man, is the action of guitars is the height of the strings off of the fretboard. If you can keep that pretty low, so there's not very much of a gap between the actual frets of the neck of the guitar and the strings, then you can just firmly get to the frets, to the fretboard, right? If you've got all that play in there, just a lot of space between the strings and the frets, then it's like, yeah, essentially like, not firm, because you have to bend the string all the way down to the fretboard from where it is if it's, higher than it should be. It can also just, make playing so much easier. It can make you quicker at playing and more accurate. But that comes, through setup of your guitar. So anyway, firmness, brother. Be firm. If you're going to say something, say it, That's a big thing. And that's hard. I grew up just being silenced by my dad, my earthly father. He never, really let me speak, never let me have an opinion. We don't need opinions, but the problem is, he was so opinionated. He didn't really care about if things were true or not. He just tried to tell you what to believe. And so, he never let me really say anything and to take it into consideration. So I was the person growing up, and, in times I definitely still do it, and I never should. It's a fault of mine, and everyone's who does it. But I would say things all timidly, and I wouldn't stand firmly on what I said. Or I'd say something, and then right after I'd be like, kind of trying to take it back, right? And that's disgusting behavior. Things are just what they are. And we would live in an amazing society if everybody just only said what they meant, and when they said anything, said it very, very firmly. And you can be very, very wrong, but say it firm still, right? Um, it also literally helps your body. Like you don't want to whisper, right? Like this whispering. I don't even like to do it for that long. It's bad on your vocal cords. What allows you to make vibrations to speak audible noise. It's actually bad to whisper for your body physically. You're just blowing air across your vocal cords without them actually vibrating, which is how they're designed to work. Um, so yeah, saying things firm, blunt, having that getting your core, that's me hitting my abdomen, right? Getting your core really involved in speaking, well, right, as I say, it's just the truth. The human body can only ever work activated as a whole. So our core should always be constantly activated. That's the only reason the musculature is there. It's just to always support the whole body, right? Rest weakens the body, like I said. Doesn't matter what I say, but that's just the truth. That's the case. Again, we discuss it in such depth. There's no opinion. You just got to see it in a world of unnatural, right? Again, that's where it comes from is stretch within clothing. People don't understand a lot of the times nowadays that the body should just work as a whole because it only ever could. What I was saying though about speaking is speak firmly. It will help you physically. That's what I mean. I mean, it's just what it is, bro. Truth is truth. Like, I mean, even when you're speaking kind of quieter like this, it's still a solid, rooted firmness behind your voice. It'll help you in all aspects of your life. It really will. It really will. Firmness. Just always. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Cool stuff, man. Cool stuff. You know? Cool stuff. I mean, everything hid comes to the light, so everything whispered will eventually be spoken loudly. You don't light a lamp and place it under a bed. You light a lamp to brighten the room, meaning, don't make things all hush hush. Make it bright, make it big and bold if you're gonna make it at all, right? You want to be seen in this world. Well, don't try to be seen by the world or human beings, but you want to actually like be solid. Do it then firmly, anything you do, or don't do it at all, right? Because what you're doing is kind of questioning yourself. That's what happens. It's you versus you. There's an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Your Own Worst Enemy, and we are our own worst enemies. The only reason you cut off what you say at the end like that and drop off your words is because you don't feel confident in your own words. Because anybody and everybody's going to say whatever they're going to say. We need to be solid in our own beings. And the only way that you can be solid in what you're doing and saying is if you're doing things that are true. Otherwise, you'll question yourself. And you can't speak it firm if you're not even sure of what you're talking about. There's an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled You Don't Know What You're Talking About. And it wasn't like me versus him or me versus her, but it was just, as I'm saying here, a lot of people say things and they don't even know what they're saying. They don't know what they're talking about. And if it was me, well, I'd be wasting my breath, wasting my time, and saying things that really would have been better off not being said if I just didn't even know what I was saying, right? So that's how you get so firm with your words, is you are true to your word. Meaning, do all that you can to not say anything unless you really know what you're saying. Because words don't just come out of your mouth without you doing it, right? It's a physical thing. You're just moving your jaw, right? I talk about it. That's why I say all the things we talk about under In the Image Clothing Company, doing them naturally. Speaking is one of those physical things. The jaw stabilizes the entire body. We can get into so much with just firmness for this beautiful episode, 144 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Firm Ground. Anyway, yeah. For those of you at work, don't stand on a mat that's squishy to try to make your body have less fatigue by the end of the day. You will have more fatigue by the end of the day. Stand on the firm ground, even if it is just carpet or tile or something. Do what you can to try to mimic dirt or rock. Okay, some texture and some firmness. The human body loves texture. That's why I say, within the tongues of the shoes, we need the tags that are so often placed there to at least have a lot of slits put into them with a knife or scissors to get texture to them. So there's some firmness, if you will, for the musculature of the ankles to activate against, rather than the slippery, shifty, shaky, if you will, rightness of the material of those tags. So anyway, it's as real as it gets, bro. Firm ground. Yeah. And when you are sitting, that's what I say about how sitting in chairs, it damages your body because it deactivates your hamstrings, the musculature of your upper rear part of your leg. And so I talk about it like I am now. We sit on our sit bones, the ischiums, the bottom of our pelvis, the actual bone of our hips. So when you are sitting on anything, if you can, sit on the edge of it so your hamstrings, which are soft musculature, don't get pressed into. Sit on the firm bone of your body, the hips, the base of them, and your feet on the ground, right? Yeah. Anyway, today is the 7th of July, 2025. My name is Evan Strong. This is in the Image Clothing Company Podcast, episode 144, titled Firm Ground. And that's what I'm going to say for this, okay? So stick around for the poodles. You won't be disappointed if you do. Unless you just don't care about dogs at all or poodles. But we'll do some really awesome big things with poodles. A big name in poodles, in the Image Clothing Company poodles, okay? Thank you.